In this video, I look at Aero Gains, the claims of the new Bianchi Oltre RC, and I discuss this attempt by Hambini to do some maths. So first of all, let's take a look at this Bianchi Oltre RC. The frame set for this self-described hyperbike costs €5,749. Bianchi have made two claims in particular compared to their previous Oltre XR4. The first one is that it saves you 45 seconds at 40 km per hour at 250 watts. And the second is that it would save you 17 watts when you're riding at 50 km per hour. An interesting development here is that the air deflectors that are one of the key features Bianchi promoted have now been confirmed as not actually permitted to use in UCI sanctioned events. So it'll be interesting to see if this changes any Bianchi's claims. I mean, will the absence of these deflectors erode their claims, reduce the amount of seconds it saves you per kilometre? Or did these deflectors not actually deliver any aero gains in the first place? But the first thing I want to look at is this first claim. So 45-second gain over 40 kilometres. How significant is that? And I was trying to think of an example, and the best one I can think of is an event I did, the UCI Tour de Bintan Gran Fondo 2019. So this has on day one a 17-kilometre individual time trial. It does have to be done on road bikes, and the category I'm doing it in male 35 to 39. So this is one where you do have people who might really be using a bike like this. So this gain, that equates to 1.1 seconds per kilometre. So over the 17 kilometres, that is 19 seconds. You take the top 20 from that race. So what would this 19 seconds actually mean in the standing? Well, let's say your goal for this race is to go for a podium. Well, between second and fourth place, there's only 6 seconds separating between those. So yes, can really make a difference in terms of going for a podium. Let's say your goal is to go for a top 10. Well, the 11th and 12th were only within 15 seconds from a top 10 finish, also within the 19 seconds. Well, let's say your goal was to try and get one of these things, the World Series World Championship qualification. Well, unfortunately, this chap, he was only 7 seconds away from meeting the top 20% cut. So yes, I do think it is actually very significant, this kind of 1.1 second gain per kilometre. But then what does this actually mean in terms of? Well, so Hambini looked at that, and he did some maths, and he did say he was probably wrong. I think he's definitely wrong. It looks very obviously sort of not even close to me. I responded back to him, and actually even took the time to kind of type out what I thought was the real maths, and I just kind of got a response back. Try working that in joules. Your method does not work. That's not even that's not close to being a logical response. So okay, how would I do this math? So how would I do the maths myself then? So I would start from the assumption that air is everything, and then adopt the standard equation for force of drag, which is available in all the textbooks. It looks a little bit complicated, but it actually does break down to some relatively comprehensible parts. So rho here, that's the air density. So if the air, the fluid that you are moving through, is denser, it weighs more kilograms per cubic meter. Obviously, you're going to need to put more force in to move. Airspeed, so the faster you are moving through the air or the fluid, the more force you're going to require, and it's a square relationship. Frontal area, if you're presenting more area to the fluid and you're then having to push more fluid out of the way, you're going to require more force. And then the final one is drag coefficient, which is how slippy is your shape to the air in effect. And then there's typical reference values. Some are shown here. So this is showing force required to move an object or a fluid at a certain speed. However, we want power in this equation rather than force. We deal with watts and not kind of newtons typically in cycling. That's quite easy to do. So power is equal to work divided by time. Work is force times distance. So velocity is things like meters per second. So that's your distance divided by time. And you've got your force there. So we can now substitute in force times velocity for power. Substitute that in. If we do also need to assume here that we've basically got no wind. So we are assuming that we're making the wind, the speed of the fluid that's presenting itself to us is the velocity that we're traveling. And so we then get power is effectively equal to an equation that has to the cube of the your velocity that you're traveling at. We can now use this equation to calculate what these differences are between what these claims mean in terms of watts. So we've got this equation, and we can then use that to look at these claims. So first claim, case one. So the starting point, so adopting the assumptions that Hambini made, this cyclist cycles the 40 kilometers in 1 hour, so 3,600 seconds at the 250 watts. We can push those numbers into this. So we've got power, 250 watts, 1.22 kilograms per cubic meter is a pretty typical sort of density for air if you've got a bit of humidity and things in it. 40 kilometers per hour equals 11.111 meters per second. And so then the only thing we're left with is this, is the coefficient of drag and the area. And so we can calculate that our CDA is 0.3. We then take case two, so now we get this 45-second saving that the Bianchi claimed that this new frame has. The only change this makes is now our speed has increased. So it was 11.1, now it's 11.25. Ignore the reoccurring, that's an error. So what that then means is we are going faster at the same power, and unsurprisingly, when you work that one through, the CDA is reduced. It is no longer 0.3, it is now 0.29. So that is a 3.8% reduction. So we can now combine these two to get the watts. So if we then take the faster time with the original CDA, we're then going to work out how many watts you'd have to do if you weren't more aero, and therefore what the aero saving is in watts. So that, when you work that through, that is 259.6 watts. So our aero saving is 9.6 watts, not what Hambini said it was. We can check this with the second claim that Bianchi did also make. So they actually already provided a watt saving claim that if you are riding at 50 kilometers per hour, it presents a 17 watt saving compared to the XR4. So we can double check both their claim and sort of this version of calculation against each other. We can apply the first case, so you're going at 50 kilometers per hour with a CDA of 0.3, work that through 490.2 watts. And we can then do it, but with the reduced CDA from previous, we get 473.9 watts. So the difference in these two is 16.34 watts, and this is pretty close to the 17 watt saving that they're claiming. I do have to caveat, I think there's some rounding errors and things going on here, but this all sort of seems to check out and match up. So is any of this wranglings with equation and maths of any use to anybody? Well, I do think there are a few takeaways that are of some use to quite a broad range of people who are sort of really keen on kind of extracting the a bit of performance out of their riding. So the first thing is that it's quite sobering to remember that there's this tremendously exponential relationship between getting a little bit of extra speed and how much extra power it requires to achieve that. So there's this very exponential kind of third power relationship between how much extra power you need to put in the speeds. So at 25 kilometers per hour, you only need to put in, what's this, like 75 watts based on a kind of a CDA of 0.3. To double your speed to 50 kilometers per hour, it's not double or anything. It's to the power of 3. So you need to increase the power by a factor of 8. So that goes all the way up to 500 watts in order to double your speed. So it is always worth bearing in mind, like when you're thinking of kind of going on a bit of a breakaway or something, like how many matches you're burning just to go that extra kilometers per hour extra, and what that relationship is. Another thing is that just a CDA improvement of 0.01, it is pretty significant. So you're saving 1 second per kilometer. And if you're doing races and things, that is a pretty big gain. If you look at that in terms of watts, if you're doing higher pace stuff, you're talking about, you could be talking about, so at 15 kilometers per hour, that CDA 0.01, you're looking at 17 watts. When you're getting close to FTP or you're over FTP, that is also a very significant number. But I do suggest getting a new aero frame. It is a completely inefficient way about going about improving your CDA. I doubt the difference between a current generation and previous generation, like Halo, offering from the top tier bike manufacturers, even provides the 0.01. And if you're chasing Aero Gains, it's really low down on the list of things I would be looking for. So as a bit of an example here, these are some numbers I found. Here's the reference. I'll put it in the description below. Looking at, so on the left here, is an example of just differences in rider position and what difference that makes to CDA. So difference between riding in the hoods and riding in the drops, that's 0.02. So that's double that 0.01. So you're looking at kind of 2 seconds per kilometer there for that kind of difference. On the right hand side here, we're now looking at a few bits of kit. So the difference between a relaxed fit jersey and a skin suit is a CDA difference of 0.03. So that is like huge compared to that kind of that's triple the kind of that 0.01. And this is like a couple of £100, not thousands and thousands of pounds on a new bike. So apparently, according to this one, I mean, just shaving your arms and legs, that gets you 0.02 CDA improvements. That's double the claimed benefits. I think, of course, that depends on how much hair you've got to begin with, and all that kind of thing. But like something that people a few years ago were talking about being completely insignificant is far more significant than even if these claims are true. Another one here. So okay, winds tunnels might not be the most accurate way about going things, but this claim seems reasonably credible to me. So, and it does match up with those previous numbers. So, difference between these two jerseys that was done by Specialized, they were claiming that was 91 seconds over 40 kilometers. So, changing your jersey, double the benefit of the claims Bianchi are making for this new bike. Another one looking at positioning. I mean, this one isn't quite so serious. This is just a CFD exercise, but some pretty significant differences if you're kind of assuming the kind of the aero type. So even that one that's 12% faster, that one's still UCI legal, I think. Some of these other ones have been made completely illegal based on the newest UCI rules, but if you're going downhill at high speed, you know, this kind of stuff can make a real difference. But even this math I presented, that was assuming error is everything, and it's not. So I think if you actually were looking at modeling where your power is actually going when you're riding, I think it looks a bit more like this. This aero bit is that one small part of a much bigger equation of where all your power is going when you're riding. At higher speeds, and you're not going up steep hills, this aero component is a pretty dominant one, but there's more to it. So if you want me to break this down and have follow-up videos talking through what all these bits are, and what my version of where your power goes when you're riding, comment below and maybe I'll do it. I'd actually be a bit surprised if anybody is watching this far into the video. So but going back to Hambini, so his maths, and why did this look so obviously wrong to me when I saw it? Well, it's linear. It's so obviously not right. So, but how could, if I wanted to try and make this work? So let's look at how this could potentially make sense. This math. So the only way I can get this to make sense is if you consider that your rider's a mass, going up a gradient, then you're modeling potential energy against gravity. So yeah, if you do that, the standard equation for that is mass times gravity times your height that you're gaining is your potential energy. So okay, we've got our mass going up a gradient. You see mass is going a pretty steep gradient here. Then okay, so gradient has gradient is theta. The velocity we're traveling at is v in meters per second, and so what we're doing by doing that is we are gaining a certain amount of height per second, and that value is we apply a bit of trigonometry, so it's the velocity we're going at times the sine of the gradient in meters per second. Yeah, so that's yes, we're going up, but as we go up, we are fighting its gravity. So gravity is providing this accelerational force, counteracting that rise. That then requires this proportional force to overcome. So back to this again. So power is work divided by time. And so that's what we end up with, is that the power. So we've got the mass in there. So we've got our mass component, and then we've got gravity, and then our height is equal to this bit, which is that there. So we can then take that equation that we have, and we take the extract from Hambini's maths. So he's saying, okay, yeah, we assume that this 40 kilometers, we're going at 40 kilometers per hour, i.e. we're taking 1 hour. So it's a bit easier if we say we're doing 40 kilometers in 1 hour. So that 250, that's our power, that maps there. Our velocity is meters per second, so we have 40,000 meters that we are doing in 1 hour. So that's our meters and our seconds, so we can plug all that in. This is what we end up with. So velocity becomes 40,000, as in 40,000 meters, divided by 3,600 seconds. We need to remind ourselves that power equals work divided by time. So what we've got here is this figure here, this 900 to the times 10 to the power 3 watt seconds. I don't know why watt seconds. I mean, it's 250 watt hours. I mean, that's the unit of energy. Of energy storage, but anyway, I'm just trying to make it all balance out. So if we apply it as if it's potential energy, the maths does actually work. It does match up, and yeah, it works. So yeah, we can then take the second one, and what's happening here is we're saying that this energy is the same. It's just we are generating this energy, doing this work faster. So fine, it matches up. So will it work? Yes, but sanity check here. So we've got an equation, it works, but what are the variables? The variables we've got here, we've got mass. We've got mass, we've got gravity, and we've got gradient. Those are our variables that can, I mean, I suppose, yeah, those are our power and our velocity are fixed, and the variables that we've control over are the mass, gravity, and gradient. Which of those variables relates to aerodynamic gains? None of them. This whole equation has nothing to do with aerodynamics whatsoever, and we're talking about aerodynamic gains in the frame. It's just the reason it's so funny is Hambini is usually pretty on the ball, and I found it pretty insightful and got quite a few things from it, and I just don't know what he was thinking when he came with that one. So anyway, still have quite a bit of respect for the things he does, but he got this one a little bit wrong. He did, to be fair, put at the top of the slide probably wrong. So yeah, he was. So got any thoughts or anything? Let me know. Cheers. Oh, if you did like this video, please do click the like button, and as always, keep smashing your intervals.